I'm male, 30. The way my parents perceived success and raising children was very toxic and screwed me up for years. Neither of them was financially very well off during their childhoods, and the only reason we became middle class was that Dad had gotten a college scholarship. That was the launch pad he needed to become successful. But both my mom and dad still had a lot of anxiety about how I and my brother Derek, male, 25, were going to make it in life. Since dad had done it through the academic route, he thought it would be the only way for his kids to have a good life. My mom was also on his side, and she herself regretted not being more serious during high school and didn't want us to make the same mistakes. Because of that, they were on my case ever since I was born. I knew about the criteria to get into top colleges by the time I was 10. I had after school classes on weekdays and extracurriculars on weekends. My real passion wasn't in any of the things I was good at through forced practice by my parents. I could care less about my piano lessons or my SAT score. It was all forced down my throat from an early age, and that made me rebel against what my parents wanted of me. I was more interested in the idea of working in film or acting, but you can imagine what the reaction was like from my parents. On the flip side of all this is Derek. Since Derek was so much younger than me, he was the do-over kid. And my parents forced the same things onto him in a less toxic way. Well, maybe less toxic isn't the right word, but a different kind of toxic. Instead of threats and constantly claiming that he was going to ruin the family, mom and dad built up Derek's ego and constantly hyped his achievements. If he ever came second or didn't do well, they would reduce the amount of affection he got. It was like conditioning Pavlov's dog. Derek didn't have to be told to study like me, since from a young age he knew the things he had to be good at to win the love of his parents. By the time I was 17, my 12-year-old brother had a lot more going for him as compared to me at that age. He had been doing so well academically that he'd skipped a grade. He'd also been able to win several state-level competitions and was an overall multi-talented person. But he and I stopped getting along because he always rubbed his achievements in my face, and to be honest, never bothered having a personality beyond being a smug jerk. Around this time, my dad got laid off from his job and money was tight around the house. It affected us as a family, and I tried my best to help out. I began working and saving money, but things were still tight, especially with the kind of money my parents spent on tutoring and education. During dinner one night, I casually broached the topic of me not attending college immediately by saying, "Hey, I was thinking I could take a gap year and work." And the way mom and dad looked at me, I might as well have said, "Hey, I'll become a male stripper." They got so offended that dad stormed out of the room and my mom said, "That's so disrespectful. You don't care about your life, do you?" Before running after her husband. Derek looked at me condescendingly and kept eating his meal. The next morning, my parents came into my room and I could tell something was off. They were both hostile, and my dad said, "OP, you're an adult now. Your priorities are different from ours. Your mom and I think you need to go out into the real world so you know how tough it is out there." Basically, they were kicking me out of the house because I didn't want to add the financial burden of college on them right away. I tried to explain my point of view, but they just didn't care. They gave me a week to leave the house. I was so scared, and I look back on that moment as one of the low points of my life. I was basically going to be homeless because my parents took offense to one sentence I said at the dinner table. Thankfully, since I'd been working for so long, I had some money saved up. I moved into a shitty apartment and kept working odd jobs while figuring out how to improve my life. My parents never explicitly went no contact with me, but they never initiated contact with me unless I took the first step. I would try and check in or at least try and maintain some kind of relationship. It probably wasn't worth my time. The last straw that made me give up as well was when I heard from a relative that my dad had been speaking about the extra space they now had to make Derek a study room so he could work without distractions. The room I had spent my entire childhood in was being turned into a study room. That hurt me a lot, and I just stopped speaking to my parents. I blocked their numbers and decided to spend my energy on trying to make a career out of acting. I uploaded skits on YouTube and ended up getting a lot of traction. After a few years, I had around 200,000 subscribers and decided to move to LA after a few other influencers had asked me to work with them on collaborative projects. From then on, I never looked back. I guess you could call me one of the OG YouTubers from the 2012 to 13 era. Ever since then, my content has evolved, but my followers have steadily kept growing. I ended up creating an online class on acting techniques, and it was received well, and my income right now is very high, especially due to sponsorships and tie-ups. I have lost contact with almost all of my family, and I don't even think most of them know that I'm a famous guy now. The only person I regularly talk to is my cousin Gigi, but she said that she doesn't want the family to know about me because they might come running at me for money. I mean, I get her point of view. Something similar happened, and that's why I'm making this post. I was going about my usual routine when someone rang my doorbell. When I checked my security camera, I saw that it was my parents. I was agitated, but I wasn't going to ban them from entering. When I opened the door and we began to speak, it was clear that both of them had missed me. Apparently, one of my videos came across by chance on Mom's YouTube page and drew them to hire a private investigator who eventually tracked me down using clues from my videos. I was happy to see them, but I had to ask, what had changed since all those years ago? My dad said, "Truth be told, son, ever since you moved to LA, we've been regretting the way we treated you. But there was no way to track you down, and we were ashamed of what we had done. It was purely by chance that we came across your video. Can we have a fresh start with you? Please, OP." I was touched, but overwhelmed. I told them they were welcome to stay for a few days, but I mentioned clearly that I wasn't committing to building a relationship with them just yet. I could tell this wasn't the reaction my parents expected, but they didn't push me to take a decision ASAP. They're sleeping in the guest bedroom right now, and I'm writing this post. I feel so conflicted, but my life is good right now. I know it could be better to reestablishing contact with my parents, but I'm too scared to rock the boat. WIBTA if I sent them home without a clear answer? Update 1. Okay, I got some news which has made me lose trust in my parents again. I told Gigi about their visit and she asked if Derek had been able to come. Truth be told, I hadn't even thought about it and I pushed her on what she meant. She told me that Derek was apparently in rehab for addiction issues. He had been kicked out of college during his final year after he sent an obscene email to the dean. Apparently, he had been really drunk and acted stupidly. From then on, it just kept going downhill. He was smart, but his complete lack of people skills meant that he wasn't making the kinds of professional strides that my parents expected of him. I wasn't too shocked to hear this. I mean, with the kind of pressure Mom and Dad put on him, Derek was a ticking time bomb waiting to act out. Since he also had to struggle with the idea that being himself would disappoint his parents, I guess he took to drinking to try and suppress it. Now, why hadn't my parents mentioned this to me? I started overthinking, and now I feel like even if it was a mere chance that they discovered me, there's still an element of my success at play here. Like, maybe they wouldn't care if I turned out to be a poor nobody and Derek lived life the way they expected him to. I'm unsure about it, but I'll confront my parents tomorrow and get to know them. Update 2. I ended up kicking my parents out of my house and will be staying no contact with them. When I confronted them about it, it was clear that they were hiding it purposely from the way they reacted. As the conversation went on, Mom chimed in and said, Derek turned out to be a failure. He didn't listen to us and started drinking heavily. We've done our part by sending him to rehab and paying for it, but what can we tell our family? That one son is an alcoholic and the other doesn't talk to us. So it was all just for their reputation, huh? I guess they were just that petty and small-minded. I can't help but feel bad for Derek. It's clear that the parenting he received directly influenced his behavior and burnout. But of course, my parents disagreed. They left their number with me and asked me to call them once I could understand their point of view. But I threw that number in the trash. If they ever show up at my doorstep again, I won't be as welcoming. NTA, you and your brother were pitted against each other by two heartless parents. I hope one day you can reconnect with Derek and get him out of his slump, although I respect that it isn't your burden. NTA, NTA at all. Just the fact that your parents were hiding the truth from you is a major red flag. Just by reading your description, I also felt like they had changed. It's good you have Gigi keeping you in the loop, otherwise, who knows what they would have asked of you? Next story. Throw away because I'm paranoid. So I, 31, female, have been married to my wife, 35, female, for 2 years now. She has 2 kids from her previous relationship, 9 male and 7 female. But their dad isn't in the picture, and I consider them my kids, and they see me as a parental figure, even though they don't call me mom or anything like that. Because I work remotely and start work later than my wife, I'm in charge of getting the kids ready in the morning and taking them to school, which can be a hassle. It's usually a fight to get them out of bed, which leaves us with barely enough time to get ready and get to school on time. I always enforce they take a shower when they wake up too. That's how I grew up, and I just feel more refreshed and actually ready to take on the day. However, trying to get everything done in the morning has led to a few late drop-offs at school to the point where my wife was notified. She asked me what was up, and she was confused why the kids had to shower in the morning when they already shower at night. I told her the 2 showers a day serve different purposes. A short one for waking up, getting a jump start on your day, and a longer one for cleaning up after running around all day. And it's not unreasonable. It's what I do personally. She says since it's making the kids late to school, it is unreasonable. I said then the kids got to get up earlier, which she was not happy about. Obviously, I don't want the kids to be late to school, but part of the issue is these kids don't want to get up and get started, and we've never been significantly late before, so I don't know anymore. So AITA for making my kids shower twice a day? Edit. I encourage speedy showers, like 5 minutes as a goal. I'm not actively trying to make them late. I'm trying to encourage a good routine. My wife is a bit more laissez-faire on the issue and says she would rather let them go to school in their PJs without breakfast if it meant they'd be on time. I'm trying to have all their needs met, and if they're 10 minutes late to school, it's not the end of the world. Second edit. It doesn't dry out your skin if you shower in cold water. Also, moisturizer helps with dry skin. It doesn't take that long to dry off, especially since they don't wash hair or get it wet in the mornings. I'm not a pervert nor a hard ass. It goes like this. I wake up, say you go take a shower, and I'll meet you downstairs for breakfast, and then I go get them something to eat. They have never been bullied for being late. When we are late, I walk with them to the classroom, and it doesn't appear like they're missing instruction. At worst, they miss morning recess and the announcements of what they're serving for lunch, but they bring lunch from home. Reluctant third edit. Surprised everyone is concerned about cold showers. We live in a climate that's warm year-round, so cold showers are the way to go. The place I used to live had solar heated water, so on rare cold days, All you had was cold water or turn on the electricity and wait 2 hours for the water to heat up. Of course, that's whatever personal preferences and stuff. Final edit, hopefully. Some of these comments are nasty and are assuming a lot. No, cold showers, especially when it's hot outside, do not equal abuse. No, they don't get dressed when they're still wet. No, I don't force kids with wet hair out the door in the middle of a harsh winter. No, their skin is not falling off. No, we don't have AC, so sometimes nights are warm and sticky. Ironically, you all use your own personal preferences and biases to call me an a-hole for using my personal preferences and biases to raise my kids. You can't call me an a-hole for assuming my kids are carbon copies of myself, when you're naturally assuming they're somehow carbon copies of you, strangers on the internet that live vastly different lives from us. Update. I see your comments and accept that I'm wrong. More importantly, I want to do what's best for them. It's obviously a cultural thing that not everyone agrees with. I've talked to my wife and we're all designing a new morning routine together. Again, I accept that I'm wrong. It's difficult being a newer parent. I understand people concerned with truancy and CPS, but trust me, it's not at a point yet. YTA, showers twice a day could actually be bad for their skin unless you're using the right products. You're trying to impose your personal habits on the kids against their will and against their mother's wishes. It's interfering with their schedule and causing a problem with tardiness. It's 3 against 1 here. Just because it's how you grew up doesn't mean you have to enforce it on others. The kids are already struggling with mornings. Forcing them to get up earlier to take a shower just because you did doesn't make sense. Just because it makes you feel ready for the day doesn't mean it works that way for them. I don't know that your framing of it as they just don't want to get started is helpful either. Sounds like you're calling them lazy for not wanting to get up in the morning. They may not be getting enough sleep. Their body clock may simply not be good in the early mornings, or maybe some other reasons. But defaulting to these kids are being bad and lazy by not doing things how I do is a dangerous game and rarely ends well. Why WBTA if you don't listen to your wife here? Next story. Y'all, this is the stupidest situation I've ever been in, and I need the internet to weigh in because I have no idea who is the a-hole at this point. I, 16, female, have always been really big for my age. They tested me to make sure I didn't have a medical issue because it was so freaky, but turns out nothing is wrong. I'm just really tall and built. I've been teased about it my whole life, but I like it now. My parents do not. They worry about me not fitting in, and they get really upset when people confuse me for a boy, which happened a lot before boobs. So my mom has always had me wear really obviously girly clothes. I have to keep long hair, and they've always pushed me towards really girly things. I think they're afraid I might be trans, or at least people will treat me badly thinking that I am. It's not great, but it's always been more trouble to not go along with it. I started working out over the last year, and I really like weightlifting. I must have good genes for it because I've made a lot of progress. The problem is that my muscles are bulking enough to be noticeable now, and my parents think it's going to get me bullied for being too masculine, so they said I have to stop. My dad suggested jogging or yoga instead. I'm doing yoga, but I miss my weight workouts. So I asked the coach that teaches my health class if I could come in early and use the school's weight room. I've been doing that for a month, but my parents found out about it this week from one of my teachers. They said I disobeyed them and went behind their back and I'm grounded. I said it was really stupid that I can't work out the way that I like and they can't stop me. My mom said I'll thank them when I want to start dating. I'm doing push-ups out of spite, and my dad says that it's good that I want to exercise, but I'm being disrespectful. NTA, it's great that you found something that you enjoy doing and that makes you feel good about yourself. Your parents' concerns may come from a good place, But ultimately, it's your body and your choice of how you want to exercise and take care of yourself. As long as you're doing it safely and responsibly, you shouldn't have to give it up because of their opinions. It's also not fair for them to force you into gender roles and make you conform to societal expectations. Keep doing what you love and standing up for yourself. NTA, the idea that to be attractive to a man you have to be petite and smaller than him, is both deeply misogynistic and low-key threatening. Why can men only be attracted to women they could physically overpower? Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.